There is a mother right now sitting in a school pickup line. She has been there for 20 minutes. The line has not moved. She is watching the front door of the school because her kid is supposed to walk out of that door, and she needs to see it happen with her own eyes before she can pull forward. And if you told her that 30 years ago, a kid her child's exact age was walking home alone, letting themselves into an empty house, making their own food and handling whatever came up until a parent got home around 6, she would look at you the way people look at something they genuinely cannot picture. Not because she doesn't believe you, because the world you're describing doesn't feel like a different time. It feels like a different planet. My name is Kevin, and today we are going back to that planet. Because here's the thing nobody says out loud when this conversation comes up. Gen X did not just grow up differently. Gen X grew up in ways that would get someone arrested in 2026. Not slightly differently, not in ways that would raise an eyebrow, in ways that are now classified as child endangerment, written into law and enforced by Child Protective Services. And the reason this matters is not to make you feel tough for surviving it. It is not a nostalgia trip dressed up as a YouTube video. It matters because every single thing on this list did something to the people who lived it. It built something in them. It wired them in specific ways that explain specific behaviors they still carry right now at 50 years old. And for a lot of Gen X people, nobody ever connected those dots. So let us connect them, one at a time, starting with the one that would end a parent's morning if it happened today. You rode in cars with no seatbelt. Not occasionally, not by accident on a short trip. Routinely, every day. The back of a station wagon with the rear seat folded flat was basically a moving playpen. Kids piled in. They rolled around. They fell asleep on the floor. They pressed their faces against the rear window and made faces at the car behind them. Nobody buckled anybody. The front seat was the same situation. Kids sat on laps. Kids sat on the armrests between the two front seats like it was a designated passenger position. The shoulder belt, if the car had one, got tucked behind the seat so it would stop beeping. And nobody thought twice about any of it. Here's what the law says now. Every single state in America has mandatory seatbelt laws. Every state has specific child restraint requirements. Car seats, booster seats, height and weight minimums before a child can ride without one. In multiple states, driving with an unrestrained child is not a traffic violation. It is a criminal charge. Child endangerment, not a fine, a charge. Now here's the psychological piece that the conversation about seatbelts always skips. When you are a small kid bouncing around in the back of a car with nothing holding you in, your nervous system is getting a very early lesson. The lesson is this: the world does not secure you before you leave the driveway. You hold on, you adjust, you figure out where the safe spots are. That lesson went into Gen X before they had words for it, and it never fully left. Now let us talk about what happened after school, because this is where it gets specific in a way that hits different, depending on whether you were a boy or a girl growing up in this era, and both versions matter. If you were a Gen X boy in elementary school, after school looked like this. You walked home, alone or with other kids, the same age with 0 adults anywhere nearby. You let yourself in. You watched TV. You went back outside. You ranged. That is the only word for it. You ranged across the neighborhood, across empty lots, across whatever territory existed between your house and the furthest point your legs could carry you before the streetlights came on. Nobody knew exactly where you were. Nobody needed to. The deal was simple: be home when the lights come on. That was the entire supervision system. If you were a Gen X girl in elementary school, after school often looked different. You walked home too. You let yourself in too. But a significant number of Gen X girls came home to a responsibility, not just an empty house. A younger sibling, dinner that needed starting, a household that needed managing until a parent got back. The ranging happened less. The early responsibility happened more. And both of those experiences, the boy ranging unsupervised and the girl managing a household at 11 years old, built things in those kids that the generation is still running on today. The boy learned to navigate without instructions. The girl learned to carry things without asking for help. Neither of them talked about it. Neither of them knew there was anything to talk about. It was just Tuesday, in 2015, a couple in Maryland let their 10-year-old and 6-year-old walk home from a park about a mile away. Someone called the police. Child Protective Services opened a case. It went on for months. Those children were 10 and 6, the same ages at which Gen X kids were regularly traveling further than that with no adult within shouting distance. What that walk built in a Gen X kid was something researchers now spend significant money trying to recreate artificially in children who never had it. Self-navigation, risk assessment with no one watching. The ability to encounter an unexpected situation, decide what to do, and do it. Before homework, before dinner, before anyone asks how your day was. Now let us talk about the playground. Because if you went to elementary school in the 1970s or early 1980s, your playground equipment was specifically and aggressively trying to injure you. Metal, high metal, sharp-edged, sun-baked, installed directly over concrete or packed dirt. The merry-go-round generated enough centrifugal force that kids flew off it regularly, and that was considered part of the experience. The slide was a sheet of metal that reached temperatures in August, capable of leaving marks on the back of your legs, through your shorts. The monkey bars were 8 feet off the ground over nothing. The seesaw was a plank of wood on a metal fulcrum that could slam down hard enough to rattle your spine if the kid on the other end jumped off, which they always did because that was the whole point. None of it had safety surfacing underneath. None of it had rounded edges. None of it had been reviewed by anyone whose job description included the word safety. The Consumer Product Safety Commission now publishes federal guidelines for playground equipment. Heights are regulated. Impact-absorbing surfaces are required underneath everything. The merry-go-round has been removed from most American public playgrounds entirely. The metal slide is essentially gone. And what happened to Gen X kids on those old playgrounds? They fell, they got hurt, they got back up, and something happened in that sequence that you cannot manufacture in a padded environment. They learned where their physical limits were by finding them. They learned that getting hurt is survivable. They learned to calculate risk in real time because the consequence of miscalculating was immediate, and nobody was going to catch them. That calibration is still running in Gen X adults right now. It is why they do not panic when something goes wrong. It is why they assess first and react second while everyone else is still processing. They practiced that on metal equipment over concrete when they were 7 years old. Here's one that is short because it does not need much explanation. You were left alone in the car. Your parent had an errand. They ran it. You stayed in the car. In summer, windows up or cracked an inch if you were lucky. Nobody thought about it. You were too young to be useful inside the store and old enough to wait. That was the entire calculation. Right now, in at least 19 states, leaving a child alone in a vehicle is explicitly illegal. In others, it falls under general child endangerment statutes. Parents have been arrested for leaving a child in a car in a mild parking lot for under 10 minutes. Gen X kids spent entire shopping trips in parked cars across America. Nobody got arrested. Nobody called anyone. You sat there and waited. And you were fine. But here's what fine actually meant. Fine meant you sat with discomfort and did not catastrophize. Fine meant you entertained yourself with nothing. Fine meant you understood at a cellular level that sometimes you wait and nobody explains why, and the waiting ends eventually. That capacity, the ability to sit with discomfort without it becoming a crisis, is something Gen X has in quantities that genuinely confuse younger generations who encounter it. It did not come from nowhere. It came from a hot car in a parking lot in 1983. Now here's the one that captures everything else in a single image. You rode bikes for hours with no helmet, no phone, no GPS, and no adult who knew your exact location. Not a loop around the block, miles. You left the house in the morning and you went to wherever your friends were, to the creek on the edge of town, to the gas station 4 miles away, where the guy behind the counter let kids hang around as long as they were quiet. No helmet, no knee pads, no way to call home, no way for home to call you. You just went, and you came back when the streetlights came on. Because the streetlights were the signal, not a text, not a location ping. The actual physical lights turning on above the street meant it was time. That was the whole system. And for the Gen X girls who did not range the same way the boys did, this was still true in a different form. The freedom existed. It just looked different. It looked like the hours between getting the younger sibling fed and the parent walking through the door. It looked like the phone call with the best friend that nobody was listening to. It looked like the bedroom door closed and the music turned up, and a private world that nobody supervised. Different geography, same psychological function, unstructured time that belonged entirely to you, with no adult managing the experience. Helmet laws for children now exist in over 20 states. Several cities have ordinances requiring adult supervision of children under certain ages in public spaces. The idea of a 10-year-old being unreachable for 6 hours would constitute a genuine emergency response for most parents in 2026. For Gen X parents in 1982, it was a Tuesday in July that nobody documented because there was nothing unusual about it. What that unstructured freedom built has a name in developmental research. Psychologists call it free-range development. The kind of unsupervised exploration that produces creativity, risk tolerance, social negotiation skills, and genuine confidence in ways that structured activities cannot replicate regardless of how well designed those activities are. A 2023 study in the journal Child Development found that children with more unstructured outdoor time score significantly higher in self-regulation and creative thinking than children whose time is consistently managed by adults. Gen X got years of that, without a study, without a program, without anyone calling it anything at all. It was just what you did when school let out and nobody was home. Here's the last one, and it is the one that ties everything together. You resolved your own conflicts. When something went wrong between you and another kid, an argument, a falling out, a fight, the adults in your life were not available to mediate it. Not because they did not care, because they were at work. Because the expectation was that kids sorted things out. You argued, sometimes you fought. Then you either made up or you did not. And either way, the next day you got back on your bike and went to the same place and played with the same kids because there was nowhere else to go and nothing else to do. No meeting, no facilitated conversation, no adult helping you identify the core misunderstanding and co-create a resolution. You figured it out, or you did not. And then you moved on because moving on was the only available option. That process built something researchers now study specifically because modern children are not getting enough of it. Conflict tolerance. The ability to sit in tension with another person without it requiring intervention. The ability to disagree and still function. The ability to have something go wrong and not need it to be processed before you can continue. Gen X has this in abundance. It shows up at work when they are the only calm person in a meeting where everything is falling apart. It shows up in relationships when they can hold difficult conversations without shutting down. It shows up in the way they parent, imperfectly, overcorrecting in some directions, but fundamentally capable of tolerating the discomfort that comes with raising another human being. It came from conflict that nobody mediated. It came from problems they solved themselves before they were old enough to drive. Now here's what connects all of it. Every single thing on this list sounds irresponsible from 2026. The no seatbelts, the empty houses, the metal playgrounds, the untracked bikes, the car park waits, the unmediated conflicts. From here, it looks like a generation of adults who are not paying attention. And in some cases, that is exactly what it was. There are things on this list that genuinely caused harm. That is true and worth saying clearly. But here's what is also true. The outcome of that unsupervised, unpadded, figure it out yourself childhood was a generation that is, by most measurable indicators, exceptionally good at navigating a world that does not hold your hand. Gen X holds 31% of all leadership roles in the United States, while making up only 20% of the adult population. That gap does not happen by accident. It happens because the people filling those roles spent their childhoods solving problems with no instruction manual, being trusted or more often just left to figure out what to do, falling off metal equipment and getting back up, coming home to empty houses and making dinner for themselves and a younger sibling, riding 4 miles to nowhere and finding their way back by the time the streetlights came on. Boys and girls, both directions, both sides of the same childhood. And when someone today looks at a Gen X person in a crisis and says, "How are you so calm? How do you know what to do when nobody gave you instructions? How have you been holding this together for this long without asking anyone for help?" The answer is right here. They practiced their whole childhood on metal equipment, with a key around their neck, with the streetlights as their only curfew system, and they were fine. In all the ways fine means something real. Thanks for watching. Both sides of X. See you in the next one.